Okay, dear colleagues, good evening. Welcome to this virtual press conference after the end of a video conference by the foreign ministers of the EU member states in the framework of the Foreign Affairs Council, Virtual Foreign Affairs Council. High Representative Josep Borrell will now inform you about the topics and the content of the discussions, and then we will open the floor for your questions. The system is, as it was this week, the case that you can raise your hand and then I will give you the floor. So, High Representative, you have the word now.
Thank you. Today we have been working on the situation on the southern neighborhood and the wider Middle East in light of the coronavirus pandemic, on the formation of the new Israeli government. Apart from discussing this point, I have also informed the ministers about the preparations to the fourth Brussels conference on the future of Syria and the region, and the ministerial event will take place on the 13th of June in, I'm afraid, in virtual format. This conference will be an opportunity to come with ambitious pledges and to express support for a credible political solution to the Syrian conflict mediated by the United Nations. I have also informed my colleague ministers that the European Union, together with Spain, will co-chair a donor pledging video conference for the Venezuela displacement crisis on the 26th of May. The conference will support Venezuela's neighborhood, who are receiving unprecedented levels of refugees amounting to 5.5 million people. The crisis has been aggravated further by the coronavirus, and this pledging conference is very timely. I offered also my support to France and other member states' ambassadors in Venezuela whose residents or staff have been affected by gas and electricity cut off. I also explained that we should relaunch the international contact group as soon as possible after the pledging conference. Today the ministers approved a statement about the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean, which demonstrates our unity in supporting Cyprus and Greece and sends a clear signal and a firm message to Turkey that we uphold our principles and interests. We will continue our diplomatic engagement with Turkey to try to steer our relationships towards a cooperative and constructive approach. Let me say some words about the repatriations. I'm glad that today I can report mission accomplished regarding this repatriation. Repatriation of the European Union citizens stranded abroad due to the coronavirus travel restrictions and how much it has been affecting air travel. I think that in an unprecedented demonstration of consular cooperation, we, the European Union and its member states, have managed to ensure the repatriation of around 600,000 European citizens from third countries back home. At the beginning, we expect to have to repatriate 100,000, and at the end it's 600,000, and I think that there is still about 10,000 more Europeans waiting to return. This is a small number, but they have to be repatriated also, so we will continue our efforts through standard consular means. So I can declare the successful conclusion of the work of the European External Action Service, led by the task force that we created for this unique endeavor. And let me turn now to the main items in the agenda. We had a productive discussion on the impact of coronavirus pandemic in the Middle East and North Africa. We are very much concerned about the socioeconomic fallout of the pandemic, which adds to the existing challenges faced by some countries, such as protracted conflicts and refugee crisis. We agree that this crisis is an opportunity to reflect on our relations with the region in the medium and long term. And we had also a discussion on the Middle East peace process. The resolution of the Israeli-Palestine conflict remains a priority, and it's one of our strategic interests for the European Union. We continue being ready to participate on it. For sure, we are on the eve of the formation of a new government in Israel, and we look forward to working comprehensively and constructively with the new government once it will be in office, which we expect to be happening at the beginning of next week, next Sunday. We are convinced that we need to work towards bringing a solution to the Palestinian issue, and we reaffirm our position in support of a negotiated two-state solution. And for this to be possible, unilateral action from either side should be avoided, and for sure international law should be upheld. We must work to discourage any possible initiative towards annexation, and this will require reaching out by all of us to Israel, to the United States, Palestine, Arab partners, using all channels that the European Union, the member state, has. Our discussion on this complex topic will continue, will not advance events, but I would stop here, and I am happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much. So now the system is, as I flagged, just raise your hand and then introduce yourself and ask your question. The first hand raised is from Lawrence Norman from Wall Street Journal. Lawrence, you can ask your question.
Thanks a lot, and thank you, Hanred. I have two questions. The first one is on the Israeli issue. You just said that the EU will not advance events in terms of annexation. Now, I know that there are 9 or 10 countries that have asked you to prepare an options paper on annexation. Should I take it from that you will not do so in the coming weeks, and you will only do so after an annexation takes place, if it does, or that you are ready to move forward on that work? And a second question on the Middle East, even if it was not discussed today, on Iran. The US is demanding that the international community continue the full the arms embargo on Iran and do not suspend it. Should the E3 and the EU work with the United States on that, or will you, as chair of the Joint Committee, insist that the EU respects the pledges embedded in the Iranian nuclear deal? Thank you, Ara.
The second question I haven't understood.
It was on Iran and US. The United States is advocating for arms embargo and sanctions to continue against Iran. So whether the EU and the E3 will align with US or...
Well, the answer is very easy for the second question. This thing has not been part of our debate today. We have been talking about several things on the broader Middle East, but believe me, no member state has raised this question. We have to think about it, but for the time being, I cannot explain you something that hasn't happened. And you know, the discussion about the Middle East peace process and the relationship between the European Union and Israel, and also with Palestine, is a complex one. And there has been several proposals on the table from different approaches that you can understand. And yes, some member states said we have to think about how do we manage in order to enhance our relationship with Israel, and which is the thing that we can do in order to try to prevent any possible annexation, and also in order to see how can we reinforce our reach out to all actors in the area. And what can we do in order to get closer to the problem? And as always, we are thinking what a geopolitical power as the European Union can do using its capacities. And that's what we will do, to think about our geopolitical capacities in order to influence on this process. It doesn't mean that we are going to do that tomorrow, but we are permanently engaged on that, and we will do it as soon as possible.
Thank you. Next question from Christian Kerl, Funke Mediengruppe. Christian, you have the floor.
Media Group. Good evening, Vice President. I would like to ask about the complications with the IRINI mission. How did you discuss the issue? Were you able to end Malta's blockade today? What are the next steps? Thank you.
Well, I launched a request to all member states to support IRINI. IRINI has been very much criticized from inside and from outside. It was difficult to reach an agreement, very difficult to reach an agreement. At the end, we managed to do that in order to ensure everybody that we are not going to have a pull effect, which were the purpose of the mission, where the mission was going to be deployed. You know, we have been discussing for quite a couple of weeks, no, a month. Now, the IRINI is already on the sea and on the air, because I want to stress that it is not only a Navy, but also an aerial mission that will survey the traffic of arms, the flow on the sea and on the air. And also through the air to watch what's happening on the border between Libya, Egypt, and the Sahelian countries, including what's happening on the border with all countries which has been very much affected by the widespread of the Libyan crisis. And now we have a problem which the Foreign Affairs Minister of Malta assuring me that it was going to be solved. And I have also made a call to all member states that can support Malta on facing this recent wave of migrants that's coming from Libya, and that we will not be solved until we stabilize politically Libya. So I hope that thanks to the help of ones and the goodwill of others, we can solve the last problems still unsolved. But Libya, IRINI is already on the sea and on the air. There is a plane and a warship working on that.
Thank you. Next question, Nureddin Fridhi from Al Arabiya News Channel. Nureddin, go ahead. Just wait a second until your mic is unmuted. Just a second. Okay, I will ask colleagues to unmute the mic of Nureddin. Is the first raised hand? Okay, now you can go ahead. Thank you for waiting.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Borrell. Of course, the government of Israel is not established in office yet, but the relevant parties like the Palestinian Authority already threatened that it may be forced to dismantle its administration. King of Jordan, King Abdullah, threatened that Jordan may terminate the peace deal with Israel. My question is, will the European Union take concrete steps to deter Israeli government not to go with an annexation plan if it comes to do it? Would the European Union consider the recognition of the Palestinian state among these concrete steps? And if you allow me, any concrete initiative regarding to stabilize the North African region, Middle East region, because of the complication of the impact of the COVID crisis, which is multiplying, let's say, the local economic and social difficulties for countries like Tunisia, Lebanon, Jordan. Thank you.
The second question?
The second question was, will the EU consider recognition of Palestine as one of the steps?
No, the second question was not
And the
that.
last one, stabilization of the region as COVID.
As you know, the stabilization in the region was a problem before the COVID crisis, and the COVID has reacted and acted as an accelerator of the process. We can say today that the risk of destabilization is bigger than before the crisis. And the COVID has not stopped the war in Libya, but the contrary. The war in Libya is today increasing from the point of view of the number of casualties, or the number of military means engaged in fighting. So yes, the coronavirus is a big threat to increase, by economic and social reasons, the political instability in the region and the countries you mentioned. And we are very much engaged on trying to help them to not go to a path of increasing destabilization. I know this is going to be difficult because our resources are limited. We have already spent almost the last resources that we had in the budget, because we are running the last month of the 7-year budget. But we will be at disposal, mobilizing all our efforts in order to help our partners and neighbors. If the European Union is something, is a diplomatic power. So what everybody agreed is that we have to increase our efforts and our reach out to all relevant actors in the Middle East in order to avoid that something that we don't want that happen could happen. And believe me, we are ready to do that, and we will do that on the next days, using all our diplomatic capacities in order to prevent any kind of unilateral action. And if this happens, then we'll see. But by the time being, our efforts are devoted to the diplomatic action in order to avoid any unilateral action, in support of a negotiated two-state solution, and for sure in support of the fulfillment of the international law. International law has to be upheld here and there and everywhere.
Thank you. Next question, Jacopo Barigazzi from Politico. Jacopo, you can go ahead. Your mic is unmuted.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, High Rep. Two questions. The first one there on Israel, whether the Rep agrees that the West Bank can be compared to Crimea, as one of the foreign ministers said. And the second one is on this press report that, according to which, from Le Monde, that the Belgian intelligence is afraid that the Maltese embassy could have been backed by the Chinese. So we are back to China once again, and whether you share these concerns that the Maltese or any other Prem Rep in Brussels could have been backed by the Chinese. Thanks.
Yes, I have been informed of this news, but I only have the news from the press. I don't have any more information about it, so it's difficult for me to pronounce about something that I just knew via press release. And if the Belgian authorities have something to tell us, they will. By the time being, it hasn't happened, so I cannot say you anything more than what you already know better than I, because you are working on the press and you know quicker than I what the press is saying. It's a surprising news, but I cannot pronounce myself about something that I have such a small amount of information. And then you see now about which is this, they say comparison is not reason, no? The comparison sometimes doesn't bring a lot of logic. I don't know what kind of intellectual exercise you can do by comparing one thing with the other, but the annexation of Crimea was against international law, and we say that we have to respect international law everywhere. Crimea was part of a sovereign state sitting in the United Nations, and we can discuss how alike is the situation in the Middle East, but international law has to be respected everywhere. We cannot have a selective backing of the international law.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Yossi Lempkovits, European Jewish Press. Yossi, wait until your mic is unmuted. You can go ahead with your question.
Mr. Borrell, I would like to know if you are planning to visit Israel once the new Israeli government is in office and to speak with the new leaders, and especially the new foreign minister, about the issues that you mentioned.
Well, I'm not planning to travel to Israel, nor anywhere else. At that moment, I'm not planning to visit anyone of the countries where I should think on traveling. For sure, it's an important issue for us to have the best relationship with the new Israeli government. We congratulate them once they will be in office. I hope my phone call will be one of the first that the Foreign Affairs Minister of Israel will get in order to express what we have been talking today in the Council, and our willing to continue working with Israel from all possible cooperation. Unhappily, to travel is going to be difficult to Israel and to everywhere else. But why not? It would be a good idea to visit Israel. Why not? For us, it's important to have the best relationship with Israel and to visit and to know personally and to talk with them would be a part of this cooperation.
Thank you. I see there is a question from Anna's iPad, but we cannot identify you, so you can maybe change your username so that we know who you are. And in the meantime, we take the question from Maria Psara, Euronews. Maria, your mic will be unmuted in a second. Okay, you can go ahead.
Hello, I'm Maria Psara with Euronews and Open TV Greece. A question on Turkey. You sent today a strict message to Turkey, and at the same time you continue, you said, the efforts for a creative cooperation. Are you optimistic about this relationship, and which is the state of play for the talks between EU and Turkey on the review of the statement on migration? Thank you.
You know, coronavirus has been changing a little bit the schedule of our activities. And maybe without coronavirus, we would have been more engaged in talks with a lot of people with whom we have to be a little bit slowing our relationship, not because there is something wrong on that, or we don't want to do it, or neither they don't want to do it, but every minute and every hour devoted to the coronavirus crisis is a minute and an hour less available to continue being engaged on the conversations we had. We continue being in touch with Turkey. How not? It's impossible not to be engaged in Turkey every day because there are so many links and so many things that links us that Turkey is a permanent item in the agenda. Our statement today, it's a clear message of supporting Cyprus in front of the problems of drilling. You know very well what I am talking about, but it doesn't prevent us from having to talk with Turkey about many, many, many issues. Libya is one of them, no? The drilling themselves is a question to be on the agenda. So we continue engaged in talks, but there is nothing new in the last days.
Okay, thank you. And last question, Anna has identified herself as Anna Densky. So Anna, you can go ahead with your question. Wait until your mic is unmuted. It's still muted, but okay, now you can start talking.
Mr. Borrell, I would like to ask you about the argument taking place this week, because there is a lot of tension between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt over the filling of the dam. It's a long negotiated issue, but unfortunately it came to a stalemate. And my question is, what is the role of the European Union? Because the first visit of Madame von der Leyen was to Ethiopia, and it's a major partner of the European Union in the region, and it's a lot of investment, also human investment there. So what is the role of the European Union there to help to resolve this crisis? And would you personally be engaged?
You know, for us, this dispute among neighbors as much as important as Egypt, Sudan, and also Ethiopia, the three of them, is a matter of stability for the whole region, and we are following closely the talks which are being facilitated by the United States, and regret that it has not been able to solve or to bring any kind of solution. But there are talks facilitated by the United States, and we are not part of this facilitating activity. We would be very happy to participate if we were called for, but by the time being, it's not the case. But we are ready to contribute to appease the situation and to find a pragmatic solution. I've been talking during the last weeks with all parts, and I strongly encourage them to continue engaging to find a commonly agreed way forward. I want also to remember that we are going to hold soon the Sudan Partnership Conference together with Germany, the United Nations, and Sudan, alongside Sudan. Is going to be here the 25th of June, and it will be an opportunity for the international community to recall and renew their support for the ongoing political transition in Sudan, and including, I hope, concrete pledges. And about this problem that you mentioned today, we haven't talked about it, and there is nothing new. We are not part of the facilitating talks. This is something done by the United States, but we are ready to participate if the parts ask us for.
Thank you. And with this, we covered basically almost everything that was discussed at the video conference of the foreign ministers. So thank you very much for your active participation, colleagues. Thank you to the interpreters. Thank you, High Representative. And have a nice weekend, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Stay safe. Let's try to stay safe.